Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 182 of Lonely Gods. I'm your host, David, and I'm joined here, as always, by Kate.
Hi, Dave.
Kate,
Oh God,
how was the NASCAR?
the NASCAR. The NASCAR trucks were in Canada this weekend, and it was a pretty good race, but a terrible broadcast. There was actually one point where Fox's camera feed, like the power went out or whatever, so they had to like rush to commercial with 5 laps to go, which is
Oh, God.
super good and very competent. It's not as though they've it's not as though they've been broadcasting NASCAR since 2001. They're newbies. They'll figure it out, I'm sure. But yeah, entertaining aside from the snafus, anyway.
Kate?
Yeah.
How many more weeks of Fifth Doctor audios do we have before we wrap him up?
1, 2, 3. I'd say 4 weeks, and then the last TV story. What?
We'll get into why.
You like audios?
I liked one of the audios, and I thought one was decent.
I meant that you liked audios in general.
Like audios. I just feel like we're hitting a Nissa snag.
I disagree. It's not that I don't think that it's a snag, but I don't think it's the same kind of snag.
It's not the same kind of snag. It just happens to have one character in a very long string of audio. There's not that they're not bringing a character back, and there's not one overarching plot.
There are some character threads that are carried through, but which I appreciate, and I mean, I don't mind that, because unlike Nissa coming back, there wasn't, like, for Aramem, there's not an overarching goal like there was with Richter's syndrome.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter. But anyway,
it's dragging.
I thought that you, like Big Finish, loved stories.
I do love stories, but it's just like, and we're still fairly early on, right? Like, we're in the first 5 years for the most part.
Well, our most recent one in Three's a Crowd. Yeah, we're probably looking at, like, what, 2005 or something like that.
Yeah, so that's a little further on, but still, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like there's too much of it's just another Doctor Who story. Like,
yeah, that's true.
Though actually, though, to be fair,
yeah, May 2005. There you go.
I feel like, and we'll talk about it here in just a moment, I feel like the Roof of the World was trying to do something interesting and just
did
not.
Yeah.
And it didn't fail spectacularly. It just didn't do it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, before we get into specifics, I'll just say that I don't believe that the blah handful of shows that we've got this week are a problem due to a long string of audios. I don't think they're a problem due to the characters involved. I just think they're just not very good episodes. Like, I can't point to, like, an overarching issue that they all share, other than the fact they all seem a little bit too standard. But I mean, that happens, all throughout Big Finish and all throughout TV Doctor Who as well. So I don't know. It's a pothole. Anyway,
I don't think it's the same thing either. I'm just worried. I needed to pick up.
Sorry?
I needed to pick up.
I think and I hope that you'll be pleasantly surprised, but
well, and honestly, it's last week was way more interesting because
it was a disaster.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and I would say the Church and the Crown was at least fun.
Church and the Crown was great. I really enjoyed that story.
it was just overshadowed by our like 3 hour talk about how awful Necromantia was.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get into this week.
All right.
Starting with our we're entering.
No, there's still Big Finish news. Hang on.
Oh, there is.
Yes. So Big Finish's 20th anniversary of Doctor Who audios is coming up. Heaven help us. That means at this point, I believe Nick Briggs has written more Doctor Who episodes than anyone else ever. Which is kind of horrifying. But anyway, so for the 20th anniversary of their nonsense, they're releasing a 6-hour box set called The Legacy of Time. Their very first Doctor Who audio in the monthly series was the Sirens of Time, so it's like poetry, it rhymes, I guess. And so yeah, 6 hours. There seems like they're throwing in as many crossovers in the kitchen sink as they possibly can. It looks like they're teaming River up with Benny. They've got Unit and the Third Doctor. They've got countermeasures thrown in there. They got Charlie thrown in there. Like all the doctors.
Countermeasures again.
Hey,
What's countermeasures?
it's a thing spun off of a Seventh Doctor story that we won't get to for like 100 years. But anyway, they're just throwing anything and everything Doctor Who related into a single set, and either that's going to be a lot of fun, or it's going to be a fucking cluster shit and a disaster.
Let's hope for. I mean, either one will be entertaining.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the only thing that really like stuck out to me is River and Benny meeting each other, which I've thought would be interesting for a while, just because their character sketches are so similar. I don't know what that beeping is, but it better stop.
All right. Is that all the news?
That's all the news. It's a big box set. Also, the 2 volumes of Class have come out on the same day. I don't know why they did that instead of holding one back, but if you like Class and you want more Class, there is more Class.
Is it just like a conclusion, or did they just make more?
No, I think we talked about this when they announced the box sets, but no, these are not a conclusion to the cliffhanger. These are set during the first and only season. I don't know why they chose to do that, but for whatever reason, that's what they chose to do. I think the big selling point that they were hyping up was the fact that they had a crossover with Ace and the Daleks. So, whoop-de-doo, I guess. But
are they planning on, if this does okay, are they going to make more?
I don't know. I mean, they haven't said. Given Big Finish's reluctance to let anything go, I would say that unless this tanks, they probably will do more. I don't know if they'll actually finish off the cliffhanger. Again, like when they started Torchwood, we had probably maybe a year and a half's worth of standalone episodes set during the show, and a little bit after, but they didn't like make a season 5 until they had like kind of established themselves with Torchwood audio. So maybe they're thinking of a similar thing with Class. I don't know. My ass is still a little bit chapped that Nick Briggs has continually said no to doing Sarah Jane adventures, which is a shame. And I know Liz Sladen is dead, but you can take the kids and, you know.
Oh, then it's a different show.
That doesn't matter. They made a show about fucking Jago and Lightfoot, which is great, but they appeared in one story like 45 years ago. Like, there's no... I'm just saying, nothing is too obscure. They made a New Earth box set, for heaven's sake.
That's true. They did do that, and we will eventually cover that.
I am ashamed to admit that I own it, but only because it was put on sale like immediately. So something tells me it probably didn't do very well. But
well, it's a bad idea. Of course, it didn't do well.
Yeah, they've that's the other thing too. They released the Lady Christina box set. You may remember her from Planet of the Dead. She was a thief, and now she's got a bus, I guess.
I did like that character, but I don't need an audio story about her.
I don't see... Yeah, I mean, I agree. I liked her as a guest. I don't see the potential for a series. Especially when we already have a time-traveling floozy in a bus, and she's much more hilarious.
You want to bring her back for a different story again? Sure. Like, you want to establish her as a character that deserves her own series? Fine. But don't, like, just give her one immediately.
Yeah, it seems a bit much right off the bat. I think maybe they should have tested the waters more. Again, I think in general, especially with New Who specifically, they've been kind of spamming the box sets a little too quickly, like they did with Jenny and they did with New Earth and then they did with Lady Christina. And it's, I mean, the only
mistakes.
yeah, and even like the Churchill box sets, I'm not sure about. I don't mind them because basically they're a sneaky way of doing companion chronicles for Doctors they don't have. But other than that, really the only one that made sense to me was River.
Yeah. All right. Ready to talk about our actual Who for the week?
Unfortunately, yes, I am.
Hey, this first story is decent. I liked it.
Yeah.
So,
but
yeah. You just being a grump?
Yeah, I am. That's my grump noise.
So first up, we have the first half of our Fourth Doctor Adventures season finale, Kill the Doctor.
Yep.
So, Doctor,
please do.
And Leela, the Doctor and Leela going to a planet where everyone's obsessed with their cell phones
and their internet and their social media, and someone or something in the evil conglomerate is using social media net to send orders to the populace, basically keep them docile or totally vapid, and someone's using that to kill the Doctor when he scans himself. And yeah, it's kind of Leela becomes friends with a bunch of hobos and like stages an uprising of the hobos.
Uprising.
Yeah, that Leela is a bad influence on hobos. Anyway,
the story was fun. It's like a slightly more cyberpunky twist on modern social commentary, which you said, but it wasn't like it was just on the border of groan worthy. Like it didn't get too bad with its commentary.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not a spoiler to say, not that we care about spoilers on the show. It's not a spoiler to say that the puppet master behind all this is Sutekh, especially because Big Finish put him on the cover of the box set and hyped it up endlessly. So, not really a dramatic reveal as much as the musical Sting might want you to believe. And I don't know about you, but like people really, really love Pyramids of Mars, and I think it's a great story. But Sutekh as a villain never really did anything special for me, one way or the other. So I don't find that particularly exciting. So yeah, I mean, I thought it was okay, but I thought that it was too similar to in premise, too similar to our season's other two-parter, Mind Runner and Demon Rises, which also had people obsessed with their internetal network technology and something's lurking in it. And but that story went in so many more interesting directions and was so packed with stuff that. Hey,
that one had the flesh rocket.
That one had the flesh rocket and the robot people, and like all kinds of neat things, and a sassy blue detective, and so starting from a somewhat similar starting point. One of them went off in an interesting place, and the other one went off in Fourth Doctor Adventures fashion, fueled by nostalgia, and not that interesting.
I liked it, I think, more than you did. I thought it was fun. I really enjoy that imagery with the whole mind control, techno zombies.
I mean, I guess, but there's a lot of dialogue that made me feel like, ha ha, cell phones. People don't talk anymore. People use their cell phones too much. Yes, I am topical. Clever writer.
I didn't think there was that. There was the underpinnings of that, but it wasn't that bad. I
am exaggerating to an extent, but it was enough that it bugged me.
I get it, but no, I liked it. I want to see where it goes. If it probably needs to pick up a little bit to be a decent finale, but
yeah, I agree. Especially given how strong the season is being, this is kind of if it ends off on a somewhat typical Tom Baker two-parter, I'm going to be a little bit disappointed because they did a lot of different things.
But we got some really good Leela moments in this story.
We did. She was ganking groceries like J-Rock. And Yeah, leading the hobo uprising, enjoying junk food.
Learning about class structure.
Yeah, yeah. That was the strain of this that I actually enjoyed, was the fact that as of the cliffhanger, you know, she and the doctor have a disagreement. They're still at odds by the end of these two episodes, and you know, Leela's just so innocent and so good-hearted. She's like, you know, these people are suffering and we should help them because that's what we do. And the doctor's like, you know, a bit more pragmatic in that I cannot police the fucking economic structure of every planet we visit because that would just be ridiculous. And Leela doesn't get that because she doesn't see things in that kind of nuance a lot of the time. So it's a well handled falling out because it doesn't make either of the characters unlikable, and it's believable given who they are, why they see things the way they do. So it doesn't feel like manufactured conflict.
Yeah, and again, that's why I think I enjoyed the story just a little bit more than you. Was I just really appreciated that. I liked that aspect. I didn't feel dragged down as much as you did with the kind of generic other typical sci-fi social commentary story. I liked having Leela there and seeing the other half of this, the social inequality and stuff, was really interesting to me, and I appreciated that aspect. Hopefully, it totally doesn't fall on its ass because this is a two-parter. So next week, right?
There's a lot of hobos in my town, and they like to set up shop on the little grass partition in the parking lot at the grocery store that I always go to. So my patience with them is thin because they're always in the way and being gross. And like...
I live in San Francisco.
Sorry?
I live in San Francisco.
Yeah, I know. So
I know.
Yeah, but anyway, I don't know. I mean, I harp on the cell phones. It was not the biggest problem for me. It was just more the fact that this felt not very creative compared to the rest of the season, and especially because it does have certain commonalities with our other two-parter, which I found to be a lot more interesting. So it looked worse in comparison, but yeah, I mean, I will reserve judgment. This is still, I mean, basically half a story still. So
hopefully Sutekh will justify his existence in this story.
Yeah, maybe. Dropping some sick references to Seventh Doctor audios we haven't heard yet.
So let's get into our Fifth Doctor monthly range stories.
Sure. I don't know how much I can say about 6 hours of blandness, but I'll try.
Hey, this first story is interesting, at the very least.
Okay.
It touches on my favorite Doctor Who story type. So first up, we have Axis of Insanity, where, as if you could guess, based on my very slight teasing, if you've been listening to this show, this deals with a story where we're outside of the normal constraints of reality and time.
Has anyone been listening to this show?
No.
Well, there you go then. Anyway, I usually like that setting too, but for whatever reason, this one just didn't do it for me.
I think the reason this one didn't do it for you is it kind of falls flat on its ass at the end. It's not a bad ending. It's not a good ending. It just kind of ends.
Yeah. Yeah,
but
kind of.
Basically, the Doctor, Aramem, and Perry, the TARDIS lands in nothing. There seems to be nothing outside, yet there is space. And after the Doctor clearly tells them, like, hey, we're nowhere, please don't go outside, they go outside.
Of course they do, and then they immediately get lost.
Yes.
Because space and like geography is not static. And I think they compare it somewhat to like an Escher painting where things are not always where they appear to be. And basically they have landed in the axis of insanity. And that is basically this sort of pocket dimension that acts as a hub for to contain, that's proper English, for to contain abandoned, aborted timelines, incorrect history, that kind of thing. Basically, the Doctor describes it as like the Time Lord's mistakes. and it's overseen by a controller guy, the overseer. He oversees things. Imagine that. And it seems as though like he's purposefully summoned a TARDIS, and things in the Axis are obviously not all at all well, because there's an irritating jester capering around and being mysterious. So the Doctor goes to talk to the overseer, and Perry and Aramem run into a warrior running from fire lizards, and things just kind of go south from there, because it turns out that the jester has murdered the overseer, so things are spinning out of control, and it might leak back into real history, and that's bad. And the jester came from one of these aborted timelines. It's a shapeshifter, and I guess was originally like a lady scientist. So anyway, he, she, it came into the Axis hub, and is basically trying to break out of the place, I guess. Well, being as irritating as possible, of course, and taking on the guise of our various characters to confuse them. And then it ends.
I liked the. I wasn't annoyed by the jester. I was getting some strong Kefka vibes.
Yeah.
Who I like. Yeah. That's. I mean, it's the best out of these three, I think.
Yeah.
None of them
maybe.
Terrible. They're just not particularly good either. I like the setting. I like the ideas, but yeah, it just ends very anticlimactically.
I do like the ideas. I mean, my favorite part of this comes toward the end, where we find out via Aramem, who's gotten separated from the others, and is in the clutches of the jester, that the Doctor's TARDIS is not the first one that she summoned, and because basically her evil plot involves piloting a TARDIS to make the thingamajig do the whatchamacallit and the technobabble. And I thought that was a cool reveal, because it's just like a gross, like, rotting corpse, and that Aramem eventually has to paw through to find the TARDIS key, because he never gave up the goods to the jester, so she couldn't use his TARDIS, and she couldn't even find it, even if she did.
And that was really good. But
so
the reveal of the plan and then the eventual defeat of the villain was not as interesting.
No, I think she fell out the window into a lava pool or something
like that.
Because it was like the research station in the world that she came from, and it was on a mountain above the lava pool of the fire things, and anyway.
The dead Time Lord, it stopped being interesting.
Yeah, that was kind of the last thing of interest. I mean, I'm right with you. I like twisted reality, and I like dreamscapes and surreal things, but this just didn't work for me, and I found the jester irritating after a while, and it's a real shame, because again, like the dead Time Lord, the TARDIS graveyard that we visit at the very end, just the concept of the Axis, like these are all strong possibilities that are not explored very well, I don't think. And yeah.
Next up, we have The Roof of the World.
This is going to be an interesting discussion.
This episode starts really strongly, because it starts with the Doctor landing the TARDIS. What are we in, like 1910?
1917, sir.
On a train to go see a cricket match, and we get some really good banter. Aramem and Perry.
She is such a little sister. Like, it's cute how much of a little sister she is, despite having been in line to the fucking throne of Egypt. But yeah, she just has that dynamic with Perry, and it's not snippy the way that Tegan and Nyssa could be to each other. It was very like, oh well, I'm coming too, kind of a sibling.
Also, the episode where they bring up Nyssa Tegan. Yeah, and the Doctor's like, oh, Tegan, maybe I don't need the third companion.
He loves her, really.
Does love her, really. Yeah, so that was really fun. And then the episode started, and I was like, God damn it, why couldn't it have just been 2 hours of that?
2 hours of fucking around doing nothing?
Go see the cricket match like you did in the One Village story. That was only like 45 minutes long, but still. Yeah. So, this is a weird story. Um,
A little
it,
bit.
it's told a little out of order. It splits up the characters and tell their stories separately,
Yeah, in parts 2 and 3, it's a little bit Lord of the Rings.
and then reality bends in on itself, and
Things get pretty weird, but to start us off, yeah, we're on the we're in the going for a cricket match in the Himalayas in 1917, and there's a general there with his autobiographer. There's also this there's a lord there who's acting weird because he's possessed by a thing in the mountain. The thing in the mountain is like manifesting as black cloud, and like it takes over Aramem when it attacks the cricket match. And then we get part 2, which is basically a fucked up head trip where it convinces Aramem that she's dead and that no one ever loved her or wanted her, so that she submits to being possessed. And then we get to catch up in part 3 about what the Doctor and Perry have been doing in the meanwhile, trying to figure the whole thing out. And then it all kind of collapses on itself. And I started to lose track of the plot.
it's not very interesting.
No, with a description like that, it sounds more interesting than it turned out to be.
And that's the whole time I was thinking. I was like, there is a lot fucking going on here, and they're really trying for something, but they cannot captivate me at all.
No. This is the one where I messaged you during the week saying I'm bored, and this was what I was listening to at the time. Which again, like Access, is a shame because it does its best to be strong on characterization and has a lot of like internal, not internal monologue, but like externalization of internal character issues, I guess, is if I can put on my fucking faggot hat. But
Has issues, but it's a really interesting and overall, I thought, a fun story. This starts with that great interpersonal character stuff, and then just falls so flat on its ass and is so boring for an hour and a half.
yeah, I mean, basically, I mean, for me, like it's basically what happens is to boil it down to the barest bones is that there's an ancient evil trapped on Earth who's possessing people so that it can free itself and do bad things, and that is standard Doctor Who plot number 735. That we've seen time and time and time again. So really, the only thing that offered anything interesting with that was Aramem's sort of ride through her own life in part 2. And that episode, by the way, goes on for nearly 40 minutes. It's a long fucking episode. And that was all very good. And her storyline is very much the high point, where we see through her childhood, we see that her sort of shown that her father had planned to kill her and that he had never loved her, and that the Doctor and Perry didn't want her and they felt saddled with her. And she was made to think, because of course the thingamajig can shapeshift, because of course it can. It makes her think that she was is a ghost and was seeing Perry and the Doctor die, and they were mad at her that they didn't do anything. So it kind of like piled up these like insecurities about being unwanted, basically. And that was the most interesting thing for me. I know you liked the banter in the beginning. Personally, to me, I thought they kind of overdid it, where they were like, the Doctor is very English and Perry is very American, and Aramem doesn't know what's going on. And it felt like it wasn't really like, it didn't feel genuine to me. It felt a little bit superficial.
I liked it, especially because I love any time when they emphasize Spivey's love of cricket, because cricket is an inherently dumb sport.
It is an inherently dumb sport, and I say this as a NASCAR fan. It's a very dumb sport.
Yeah, and
But
it's so fun, and and I liked this is the first time with five where we've had no companions who give any fuck, like even understand what cricket is.
I mean, I guess so, but it's just they had a lot of comments from Perry like, "Ha, isn't he so English? Isn't he so English?" And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, I guess so." Like,
I thought it was. I liked it. And
I
then,
did no, I liked what they were going with it, and I do like that that kind of attempt was made. I just think they overdid it very very slightly.
and to expand on your point a bit too about that second episode with Aramem, um, it was really interesting. Except I couldn't get out of the back of my head. I'm like, okay, well, none of this is explaining what's going on, and they're not
Nope.
going to kill her right now. So
No,
like
this was almost and I hate to make the comparison because it's higher praise than it really deserves, but it reminded me of Scherzo where it's less of a it's less of a plot thing and more of a character piece. And it didn't work as well as it did there just because it's a quarter of a story that is otherwise pretty dull.
well, also Scherzo is so fucking crazy that like it's
Incredible.
yeah, it's incredible, but there's just it's so format breaking and stuff. This isn't that. This is still in the middle of a very bog standard, boring, normal, run of the mill Doctor Who story. Like it's just part of that. So like no matter what, like that was the other thing is I knew it wasn't going like they weren't killing Aramem yet. I don't know how she's going to end up, but they weren't just going to kill her like this in such a weird and abrupt way.
Yeah, that would have been a little bit. I mean, granted, they tanked Oliver Harper in 3 stories over in Companion Chronicles, but that's far from the norm for a new companion, original companion. Sorry?
He's also weird. That's a little different.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, his 3 stories, like 2 of them are so strong.
Yeah.
So,
But
but yeah, but I mean, that's part of the fun of the audio original companions is that Big Finish can do whatever they like with them, and sometimes they can be pretty mean.
but they weren't gonna kill her separate from the Doctor like this. Like
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, she's not going to be dead for real. I mean,
it was too weird and it was just so abrupt and it's like okay, get to I all I could think of was like get to the answer, like explain what's going on. But I didn't really want the explanation either because I knew that this story wasn't.
it wasn't going to be interesting. Well, you know, and I mean, the other thing too is like from part 1 into part 2, it's such an abrupt change.
Yeah.
That I had to go back and I was like, wait, what the fuck? Like, I was tired. I'm like, maybe I drifted off and I've missed a couple minutes. And it was like, no, because the end of part 1 is the fucking bad boy Cloud attacking the cricket match, and Perry run or Aramem and Perry are like, oh, we gotta get inside and shelter and all this. And Aramem's like, I'm gonna go over here and do this thing. And Perry's like, no, wait. And then that's like kind of the last we see of her. And then it starts part 2, and it's like, you're dead, Aramem. And I'm like, wait, what?
And then in part 2 into part 3 is the same way because you just had all the story and you're like, oh wait, we're going back now. Okay.
Yeah, we're rewinding to that. I mean, I think that it, I don't know. I'm of 2 minds about it. On the one hand, I feel like it might have been better if they'd intercut those because it would have made continuity make more sense. But at the same time, like I kind of like that part 2 is so unique and focused on a single character. I don't know that I'd want to break it up, but at the same time, like maybe they should have switched them, but then that would have given the game away. I don't know how you'd fix that. But it's definitely it's a weird kind of bump, and you're like, because I mean, all through part 1, like Aramem's kind of been hearing the weird voices of the thing, and no one else can hear it, and whatever. So it's kind of like leading her off. But like, it's still a bit of a gap to go from that to like, oh, you're dead, and I'm like,
also the fact that it's tied back into this, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't this dark evil alien thing that they sealed? Didn't her father seal this away too?
I believe that might be the explanation in the end. I think if he didn't seal it, then he was at least like on the trail of it through like the ancient scrolls and whatever, something to that effect.
It was not a good explanation.
No, it's pretty weak on the explanations really, because like they find like up on the mountain there's like this big ice chamber that's like a giant pyramid carved into an ice floe that apparently Aramem was told as a child, like, if you see this you'll die and whatever, and like so I guess there's some connection to Egypt somewhere. I don't know. I mean, to be fair to the story, they might have explained this. I might have missed it. I was starting to get fucking bored. So, you know, if somebody knows, let me know.
So one thing that we did miss talking about from the beginning that ties back into the end is Perry's teaching Aramem English, written English.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Which I just love. Just, what is this? Where are your hieroglyphs? Where are your symbols? What are these curved squiggles? Like, your language is stupid.
Yeah, I did like that, and I did like the fact that those lines kind of came up again, and toward the end with Perry sort of talking her down, and also Lewis Carroll, because I mean they were reading from Alice. I don't know if you said they were reading from Alice in this one, and then the next one, Lewis Carroll comes up again where she's reading from Hunting of the Snark, and so that comes up as well, and. So that I guess that's a nice through line, and I do like, at least, and this is more to Three's a Crowd's credit than this episode's credit, but I do like that Aramem is not okay by the start of the next story. Really, her entire character arc through Three's a Crowd is kind of recovery from this. So I do appreciate that. But yeah, the actual like wrapping things up within this episode itself was kind of fucky. So what I really want to talk about this episode is because this was written by a charming guy called Adrian Rigelsford. Rigelsford.
God damn it. Sounds like a fake made up British name.
Well, he is, to say the least, a shitbag. And it's not because he made a mean joke that offended me on Twitter. I'll just read from his Wikipedia page under the controversies section. So this is, not on us. But so just to set this up, Rigelsford, he wrote a lot of reference books about basically like the history of Doctor Who and episode guides and things like that. And he did biographies of like Peter Sellers and things like that. So he's kind of he had been writing reference material at TV and film for a while, but there was always some doubts about the authenticity of the things he were saying. So from the controversy section, the accuracy of Rigelsford's reference work has been disputed. For example, unsourced and previously unheard of quotes from William Hartnell and Roger Delgado, which translates to "he made it up." The omission of the entirety of season 18 from one of his Doctor Who reference works, which is a nice fuck up, but these are the actual interesting ones. So a publication in TV Times of a final interview with director Stanley Kubrick brought Rigelsford to the attention of Anthony Fruin, a friend of Kubrick's. Fruin's investigation uncovered that a supposed tape of the Kubrick interview did not exist. In light of this, and Fruin's expert doubts, TV Times ran an apology about the interview. So, he lied about talking to Kubrick. And last and certainly not least, in June of 2004, Rigelsford was convicted of stealing 56,000 photographs from the Daily Mail Associated Newspaper's research library over an 8-year period and reselling them for approximately £75,000. Rigelsford was sentenced to 18 months.
He's a real shitbag.
Yeah, I mean, he's not like a murderer or a rapist or anything, but like he made up interviews with Stanley Kubrick that never happened. He was convicted for fucking thievery. So it may not be a surprise that this is one and only Big Finish script, but yeah, I mean, even before he really kind of came onto the more mainstream radar for the Kubrick interview, and then of course his criminal conviction. The Doctor Who fans had kind of been suspicious of the guy, that the things he had written might have been made up or poorly researched, and kind of was regarded as not very reliable. So
he missed an entire season.
Yeah, so honestly, I'm surprised Big Finish hired him in the first place. But I did try to like keep the foreknowledge that he was a fuckhead out of my mind while I was listening to this, and I did try and give it a fair shake. And I do have to impress, like, it's not awful. And again, I appreciate the attempts toward characterization. It's, you know, this just wasn't very interesting. I almost wish it had been Necromantia that was written by him, because then we could have bitched for another hour. But you know, not to be.
All right. So last up, we have another Fifth Doctor adventure. This one entitled "Three's a Crowd."
Yes. Unlike
the TV show, no, Three is a crowd, not company.
Yeah, I know. It's hard enough to say that, but so what the thing of a jig with this one is this is set on a failing Earth colony that is running out of resources, and it's presided over by a lady named Auntie, and everybody lives in these little like habitation rooms, and they pretty much like everything's very controlled. They don't leave their rooms. They exercise and they do their
It's like
fitness and
they exercise, and instead of just staring at screens, they just don't leave the room.
They just don't leave the room, and like they don't, most people only really talk to each other on video cameras, like over the intercom, and like they just kind of live in isolation, and like every now and again there's like a special social day where they get to visit one person. Anyway, so this is run by a lady named Auntie, who's played by Deborah Watling, who we'll know as Victoria. And
familiar.
Hey,
I thought she sounded familiar.
Yeah, she should. So anyway, so the Doctor and Perry and Aramem turn up, and they're on the space station in orbit, and they find weird eggs, and then they go down, and Auntie's like, "There's not supposed to be people here. It's disruptive, or whatever." And they're a colony that like wanted independence from Earth, and they've had no contact, and so they've been like basically fucked. So she took over and like regimented this ridiculous fucking society so that they wouldn't die, I guess, while the terraforming was happening, so they could wake up the rest of the colonists. But anyway, so rigmaroles happen, and there's a girl colonist called Belip, who she's got a thing going with this other colonist. I think his name is Larock. I don't remember for sure. I think that's Larock. Anyway, so Perry and Aramem hook up with them, and they kind of like exit the rooms and go into the hallway, which scares the shit out of them because they don't know how to handle being around more than one person and in an open space. There's also a conspiracy theorist guy who was like, I think that there's a door or something in these walls or something. There's literally 8 of us. And anyway, so it turns out that basically what happened is that the colony was failing, and it was found by these crocodile aliens. And Auntie was like, well, we can't fight them off, so I'm going to make a deal with them. And so she like sent them up like stasis colonists as food to eat. And in exchange, they would send home to Earth via long-range transmat a few colonists at a time.
Oh yeah, because there's a lot of teleportation in the story.
Yes. And then basically it turns out, guess what? The evil crocodile aliens were not trustworthy. They were eating them too. And now that they've been discovered, and they're like fucking Zerg Queen has laid her last fucking egg and died, all the hatchlings are coming. So they're going to like just come down and fucking eat everybody. And yeah, all of a sudden I can hear myself.
You know, I'm all for interesting cultural differences, like when we end up dealing with like the Sontarans or basically or most of the Doctor Who aliens or villain races that aren't the Daleks or the Cybermen.
Well, I'd say the Ice Warriors.
Definitely, the Ice Warriors are a really good example where we can talk about these cultural differences, but when it ends up just boiling down to, oh, humans are fucking terrible, we are so much better, like it when it's just that posturing shit, it's so boring and was such a boring explanation to what was going on, and there was no
yeah, because like the crocodile aliens were like, yo, you humans eat too.
but also they're like, the part where the crocodile alien goes off, he's like, all you do is destroy. We create art and all this stuff. I'm like, okay, no, shut up. Your argument's dumb.
Like everybody creates art on
Everybody
the planet. Art.
You're talking. The human species creates art. Like that's not a. Like you might not like it, but that's not.
All you do is destroy.
As soon as they said that they became just a cartoon villain,
I can hear myself on your end, like really hardcore.
Well, I don't know how to fix that, Kate. We're almost done.
Sorry, it's just very distracting.
Anyway,
so
you introduced this cartoonishly villain explanation to this story that was already pretty boring to begin with.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't really go anywhere. There's a lot of just wandering around. A lot into the lives of these 3 colonists who are not leading interesting lives at all.
No, I mean, they basically live the lives of a, like, average Doctor Who fan. So,
yeah, but just the only, like, really interesting part of this story was when the female or I can't remember what her name is, except they're all weird. Mm-hmm. When she has the panic attack going outside.
Yeah.
Like, that was somewhat interesting because, she hadn't been outside in fucking years. Like, that's...
Well, she'd never been outside ever.
Yeah. So...
Because she was Victoria's granddaughter, right? So, like, she was, like, never been outside.
Kept isolated, yeah. So that was an interesting story element that didn't really go anywhere in a story that didn't really go anywhere.
Well, you say that, but, I mean... For me, it's not that it didn't go anywhere. It's just that it resulted in a lot of like hyperventilating and autistic screeching, and it was kind of like, I get it. Better do something with this, or stop making noise. Like, pick one.
Also, it was set up as a mystery that was like the answer felt so obvious.
Yeah.
You know what it reminded me of, kind of, is, do you remember like it? Just in like the way it built its story structure is, do you remember the Matt Smith, the space whale episode with the elevator thing robot? Yep. Like, it reminded me of that, where they're like, okay, I know something's fucking wrong here, but like, what is happening?
I wish that this had been better thought out. I mean, it's as with like pretty much everything else this week, this is a very average setup for a story. I enjoyed this one the most simply because I liked Aramem's plotline, which, like I said when we were talking about Roof of the World, like the characterization does follow on from that. She's still recovering from her experience. She's still, she's still kind of down about everything. She's still kind of uncertain about whether or not it's, she has a place in the TARDIS, or if they're kind of just putting up with her. And over the course of the story, that she spends a lot of time with both Perry and then the Doctor, they do bond, and they do form like a proper group of friends, proper crew again. So like I said, I did appreciate that, and I appreciate that simply because, like, a lot of sci-fi shows that are sort of episodic in nature, the way that Doctor Who can be, or like Star Trek or whatever, they often put their characters through horrible experiences that they are totally fine with by next week. So, when things like this carry over, it's a nice breath of fresh air.
It is. I just wish it would have happened with more interesting stories, both that caused the events and then that they carried over into.
Yeah. I mean, and granted, I think there's something sort of like primal about the fear of like being hunted and eaten. They could have wrought, I think, a little bit more tension out of that than they did, because there were a few gruesome moments where the Doctor basically like opens the fridge and is like, ugh. But other than that, it kind of doesn't, it just results in a lot of growling and snarling, and like, yeah, it's the whole thing, the whole argument of like crocodiles being like, well, you eat meat too, and you come and you destroy, and it's like, well, we also don't eat meat that we can, that build spaceships and art and stuff. And also, like, I just don't get like how you can be like humans only destroy when it's like, motherfucker, you're standing in the spaceship colony that they fucking built and flew all the way across the universe. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So
it was a bad argument.
yeah, and then but I do want to give props to Deborah Watling as Auntie. Because I thought she was pretty interesting. She did imbue the character with personality, and my fucking lord, does this character suit her aging voice so much better than Victoria? Because we talked about this when we were covering Companion Chronicles with the second Doctor, that Deborah Watling was by far the worst performer in that series. Her voice was always either extremely strained or hoarse or weak or just, you know, and totally unbelievable as a teenage Victoria. And, you know, it turns out that she still has acting ability. It's not that she had gotten old and senile and gone around the fucking bend. It's that they were putting her into a position at Big Finish where she had to perform a role that she was no longer vocally suited for or able to actually do.
I think the performance was really good. I did not like the character. I did not think it was well written.
No, I mean, fair enough.
But no, her performance is really good.
Yeah, and my point generally is just like, this is such a better match for the way she sounds, well, the way she sounded at the time than making her be Victoria again. And it's funny, like with the Companion Chronicles, like some of those actors can sound like they did 50 years ago effortlessly, like Fraser Hines and
Fraser also doing
Troughton.
Yeah.
And Annika Wills as Polly, and Maureen O'Brien as Vicky. Like, they all sound very, 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 very accurate to how they once did. But for whatever reason, Deborah Watling, just the way her voice aged, I guess she just couldn't do it. And it was to the detriment of the story because she did not sound good. And I think it probably was because she was straining herself. It's like, it's almost when she can relax and actually just play a part that actually suits her, you know. Lo and behold, better things happen.
All right. So, with that said,
yes,
that brings this week's stories to a close. So, what do we have next up for next time? Because I'm excited. I know I don't remember what the episode title is, even though I was looking at it earlier today. What is the name of the conclusion of our Fourth Doctor Adventure season?
Ah, yes. Well, our thrilling Fourth Doctor season 7 finale is, I can't believe they've done 7 seasons already. It is The Age of Sutekh, and hopefully it draws all the plot threads together and does something a little more interesting than Kill the Doctor did, but we shall see. We also have a trio of Fifth Doctor audios, as always. So we have the Council of Nicaea, we have the Kingmaker, and we have the Gathering.
Of the Juggalos?
Yes.
Okay.
The Dark Carnival.
Awesome. So we will be back next time with that. Bye, everyone.